If a company made and sold 50%, over 50% of its products in China, would you call it a Chinese company? You do recognize that we are at economic war with China, and yet Tesla makes and sells 50% of its products in China. So why do you continue to own it? We are in economic war. This man, Xi Jinping, declared that by 2040, he would dominate the world, be the superpower as an economic power, a political power, and a military power. As recent as just 2 months ago, he paraded in front of the Communist Party his military power and said that they are now larger than the United States. We have war going on between the United States and China, and you still own Tesla? I think we need to look at this a little closer.
Best of Us Investors presents Carrie Griegmeyer.
Okay, I know what you're saying. That's just more clickbait from Carrie. But I want to remind you that I told you that I was getting out of Tesla back in October of 2021 when it was 260. And you're right, it got up to 400 in October, but it's now down in the hundreds. So And I think you need to recognize why this is happening and why people are waking up, I believe, to the fact that China is going to wage economic, military, and political war against the United States. He declared he was going to do it by 2014 or 2040, but the reality is he's moved his schedule up. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but tell me, where did the coronavirus come from? I think it was Wuhan, China. I think it was. And where is the coronavirus still a problem? I think it's in China. And what has that coronavirus done to us in the past? Well, it shut our economy down, and then it forced us to throw trillions of dollars, $9 trillion into our economy, which created the inflation, which created the higher interest rates, which it basically brought our economy to its knees. And where did that virus come from? I think it was Wuhan, China. Okay, so then why isn't he getting rid of it? Why has he got this zero policy? That he's closing people up, he's killing them, he's sacrificing his people to bring down the U.S. economy. It's really that simple. Apple has said they won't meet their numbers. They won't meet the demand for their new iPhone because they can't get phones out of China. What? Is he trying to shut down our economy? Yeah, I think he is. And if you don't recognize that, you're going to fall victim to what's coming next. I want you to think about something else. What else took a lot of money out of our economy? I believe it was the failure of Bitcoin. In May of 2022, I told you that I believe Bitcoin was going to 17,000 per coin, and at the time it was at $45,000. Why did I think that? Well, it looked like it was getting overpriced, but more importantly, I realized that China was banning Bitcoin, and they even banned the mining of Bitcoin. Well, at that point, China was mining over 50% of the Bitcoin in the world. They controlled over 50% of the Bitcoin market. Well, if they were banning it, why were they doing that, and what would the net effect of it be? If the largest population in the world says we aren't going to allow that to transact in our community, would that have an effect on the product? If the product is, in fact, Bitcoin, which I don't believe there's anything there, but that's a total another video. So why did they do that? Did they do it to protect their currency? Their currency's crap. Nobody wants their currency. No, it's economic warfare. Shut down the U.S. economy and become the economic power, the superpower of the world. That's plan one. Plan 2 is to become the largest military power. They have now surpassed us in naval ships in the water. If you watched my video last week, you know that I told you that the Seventh Fleet, the largest naval fleet in the world, has joined forces in Australia with Australia, Canada, and Japan, and they're performing exercises to potentially take care of the China Sea. Well, what's that all about? That's about war in Taiwan. Now, if you don't understand, that's part of Xi Jinping's proclamation that we will go to war. We will be the military dominant force. Well, do you believe that in order to become the economic and military, they're going to have to defend Taiwan? They're going to have to move in and take charge of Taiwan? Joe has said we will put boots on the ground. If that happens, I think we'll put ships in the sea. And the reality, and they're already in Australia, just south of China. So is that an indication that China is trying to dominate the United States, both economically and militarily? I think it is. Why would he do that? Because he believes his race, his people have had the right to take their rightful place as the dominant superpower of the world. Has anybody ever engaged in that kind of activity before? Read this book. This is Winston Churchill's book, The Gathering Storm. It basically covers the aggression of Adolf Hitler to put the Aryan race in the dominant position that it belongs. Does that sound familiar to you? Well, I think it should. So that's what I think is happening. We've got an economic war. They're doing everything to make sure that our economy fails so their economy can come to forefront. Now, he said 42, but there's some reasons he's speeding up the program. And why is that? You need to read Peter Zion's book, The End of the World is Just the Beginning, Mapping the Collapse of Globalization. And what Peter basically goes into is the past 40 years of us relinquishing the manufacturing power of the world to China. And then China then taking it back from us and saying, you can't have your stuff anymore. We saw this in semiconductors. Now, they are the middle and lower end semiconductors that run your refrigerator and your toaster and your microwave, but they basically shut us down. They said, no, we aren't able to run our factories because of this coronavirus, which came from Wuhan, China, and we're going to have to deny you, the United States, the goods and services that you want. And it's continuing. This is economic war. Over 50% of the Teslas made and sold are in China, and you still own Tesla stock. Apple's iPhones are made in China, and you still own Apple stock. Please read the handwriting's on the wall. It's there. All you have to do is wake up to it. Some of you still own NEO. And then are you still holding Alibaba, Tencent, and Baidu? That was an earlier book, the Big Nine, the dominant force. That's China. China has declared economic war on us. We're getting prepared for military war. Did you see Northrop Grumman's new airplane? Let me show it to you. Why do you think the United States is spending $620 million on 6 of these? Why do you think they're doing that? Because they want to show them off at air shows? Did you read about China declaring that they had launched a supersonic ballistic missile that circled the Earth and came back and landed in China, and we didn't see it? I don't believe the fact that we didn't see it. And then Iran raised their hand and said, hey, we got one of those too. And then, remember Xi Jinping, who's blasting missiles off in North Korea? Do you think this all ties in, maybe, with the 7th Fleet in Australia doing exercises with the Japanese Navy, the Canadian Navy, and the Australian Navy? Do you think any of this ties together? Do you think you need to consider that if you own Tesla, Baidu, Tencent, any China stock? We're at economic war with China. The question is, will it and when will it become military war? What about political war? Well, do we have some unrest in our country? Can you name 5 things that people don't agree with? From abortion rights to Black Lives Matter to women's rights to Republican, Democrat to gun rights. Who do you think stirs that pot? If they can stir that pot, do you think maybe that will create political unrest in our country? Now, I will admit to you that we are doing the same thing in China right now, and we try to do the same thing in Russia. We try to stir the pot. But this is what's happening in your world, and sides are being chosen. And if you still own Tesla, you're going to be on the wrong side. Again, I ask you this, and I know you don't read, but do you believe if in 1937 Ford made 50% or more of its automobiles and sold 50% or more of its automobiles in Germany, that Hitler would have allowed that plant to continue to operate under U.S. Ford management as he marched into Austria and then later invaded Poland? Do you think that would happen? Well, if we're going to be at war with China, do you think Xi Jinping is going to let Elon continue to operate his plant in Shanghai? I don't think so. So if you've got money in it, what do you think it'll be worth the day after the troops march in and take over the operation? Hell, they've stolen all the technology. How do you think Neo and Xpeng came to be? Come on. It isn't this complicated. But what it does require is some reading, some understanding. And if you think this is just clickbait, maybe you should watch somebody else's videos to tell you to invest in these cryptocurrency fantasies. And I will bet you that before this FTX and these other 15 crypto things fall apart, I will bet you China financed them. I will bet you that. Wait and see. I'm just an old man in Birmingham, Alabama, who's been in this business longer than he cares to remember, saying, I think I've seen this happen before. I don't think there's a new trick in the book. So, you make the decision. Are you going to own Tesla? Are you going to continue to own Alibaba and Tencent and Baidu and Neo? Who told you to buy Neo? I'll talk to you again tomorrow.